Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Cabbage Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the series of What If Deku Had Divine Dividing Gear? Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku Midoriya, the lovable green-haired protagonist, had spent his life without a quirk until now. At the age of just a year earlier, All Might had advised him to consider a more realistic career path, suggesting he become a policeman or a fireman instead of pursuing his dream of becoming a hero. Izuku had almost given up on his aspirations after hearing those words, but everything changed when a sudden burst of white and blue energy appeared before him, momentarily blinding him. As the light sped toward him, Izuku instinctively braced himself, fearing an attack. He thought he had been shot when he felt a strange sensation in his chest. However, upon checking, he found no blood or injury. Confused, he wondered what had just happened when a voice suddenly spoke to him, claiming to have found a worthy host. Panicking, Izuku looked around his room, convinced he was dealing with a ghost. The voice reassured him that it was not a ghost but Albion, the vanishing dragon. Still bewildered, Izuku questioned why this entity was in his head. Albion explained that he was just as confused, having crossed dimensions after his previous wielder had perished. He revealed that Izuku was now a bearer of his power, a vessel of the White Dragon Emperor. As Albion spoke, a mechanical wing sprouted from Izuku's back, formed from translucent light blue energy. Albion continued, noting that Izuku's body was already capable of handling the liberation form, which granted him the ability to have his opponent's strength. Izuku's eyes widened in disbelief at the revelation. Albion took pride in his new partner's enthusiasm, explaining that the so-called quirks were a form of human evolution, allowing individuals to manifest unique abilities. Izuku contemplated the offer to become Albion's wielder, realizing that accepting would bring him closer to his dream of becoming a hero and saving lives like All Might. With determination, he declared his willingness to embrace this new path. Albion expressed hope that Izuku would continue training his body, and Izuku affirmed his commitment. He had been preparing for 3 years to attend UA, aiming to become the first quirkless hero. Now, with Albion's power, his journey seemed more attainable. Throughout his high school years, Izuku had trained rigorously, learning various martial arts techniques, including Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, Wing Chun, and Krav Maga. He understood the importance of being prepared to face powerful quirk users, which motivated him to master these skills. Albion acknowledged Izuku's extensive martial arts knowledge, expressing confidence in his choice of wielder. He contrasted Izuku with Valle, who was more focused on magic and rivalries, and Issei, who was distracted by superficial interests. Izuku chuckled at the thought of being associated with such distractions, appreciating Albion's faith in him. The two shared a light moment, with Albion joking about the unfortunate nickname associated with his previous wielder's behavior. Izuku reassured Albion that he was not easily swayed by such things, and they both found humor in the situation. As their bond strengthened, Izuku felt a renewed sense of purpose. With Albion by his side, he was ready to face the challenges ahead and fulfill his dream of becoming a hero. Izuku Midoriya looked out of his apartment with a confident smirk, feeling the effects of the power he had gained. He felt certain that the power of the White Dragon of Supremacy would soon be both feared and respected. Albion, his dragon partner, shared in his excitement, grateful that this unexpected turn of events had become a blessing for them both. 3 years had passed since Izuku had gained his sacred gear, Divine Dividing, when Albion had accidentally found his way to him through dimensions. This power allowed Izuku to have the strength of anything he targeted without needing to make contact. However, he had to be cautious. Overusing this ability could lead to dire consequences for his opponents. Izuku had also developed the ability known as Half Dimension, which enabled him to reduce everything in sight, including the area around him. His Juggernaut Drive form radiated an aura that was overwhelming, both intoxicating and dangerous, making it a last resort he preferred to avoid. After 3 years of intense training, Izuku had become a formidable force. He had worked tirelessly to master various magical abilities, including flame and ice magic, which no longer affected him due to his newfound resistance. Albion was proud of the man Izuku had become, believing him to be the second strongest White Dragon Emperor, despite lacking demonic heritage. As the week leading up to his UA entrance exam approached, Izuku pushed himself harder, motivated by Albion's encouragement. He sprinted through the streets, a blur of energy that left bystanders disoriented in his wake. Upon spotting a nearby cafe, Izuku decided to take a break and asked Albion if he wanted anything. Albion manifested beside him and requested a creamy latte and toast with chocolate and strawberry topping. After placing their order, Izuku relaxed, enjoying their time together. Just as they settled in, Albion warned him not to jinx their peaceful moment. Izuku, aware of the chaos that often followed such statements, dismissed Albion's concern. However, moments later, an explosion echoed in the distance, prompting them to spring into action. As they rushed toward the source of the commotion, they found a young man trapped in green sludge, struggling against a villain who reveled in the chaos. The villain taunted him, promising that the pain would end if he surrendered. Nearby, heroes like Kamui Woods and Empty Lady were desperately trying to rescue the hostage, but the situation was dire. Katsuki Bakugo, the young man in the sludge, was furious and determined to escape. He unleashed explosions in a frantic attempt to break free, but the villain only laughed, confident in his control. As the heroes struggled to find a solution, Bakugo's situation grew increasingly desperate. Suddenly, a massive dragon-like figure appeared in the sky, drawing everyone's attention. It was Ryukyu, the dragoon heroine, who landed gracefully and growled at the villain, demanding that he release Bakugo. The tension in the air was palpable as the heroes prepared to confront the threat head-on. Ryukyu, feeling the weight of the situation, inched closer to the sludge villain, her sharp talons poised. The villain, desperate to maintain control, unleashed a powerful explosion that sent her staggering back, wincing at the impact. With newfound confidence, the villain reveled in his power, declaring that he had gained control of Katsuki's quirk. The heroes and bystanders watched in horror, realizing the implications of his words. Frustrated and trapped, Ryukyu felt helpless. Katsuki, struggling to breathe and losing consciousness, looked at the heroes with tears in his eyes, whispering for help before succumbing to darkness. Suddenly, a miracle appeared in the sky. An lady, astonished, spotted a figure clad in white armor, wings glowing a light blue behind him. As he landed gracefully, the man stood tall and commanded the villain to release the hostage, his voice cold and unwavering. The villain, taken aback, attempted to retort but felt his strength waning, his body shrinking under the mysterious man's power. A single word echoed through the air: divide. Yutakiyama, known as Emi Lady, gazed at the man in armor, recalling their brief encounter 5 months prior. A mischievous thought crossed her mind, but she quickly refocused on the unfolding chaos. Ryukyu, now back in her human form, trembled at the sight of the armored figure. Confused and frightened, she questioned her own reaction, wondering if it was fear that had taken hold of her. The man, noticing her distress, reassured her that he was not directing his aura at her, revealing that what she felt was merely the residual energy of another dragon. As the villain cowered, the man commanded him to release Katsuki, warning him one last time. The sludge villain, desperate to maintain control, threatened Katsuki's life, but the armored hero remained resolute. With a sigh, the man's eyes glowed a bright golden light as his wings expanded. He unleashed his power, declaring, "Half dimension." The sludge villain began to shrink, overwhelmed by the force surrounding him. The villain's cries for mercy echoed as he transformed into a mushy mass, and Katsuki was freed, unconscious yet alive. Kamui Woods sprang into action, instructing others to assist Katsuki, while Backdraft, nearing his limit, called for help. The armored man stepped forward, assuring them he would handle the flames. With a powerful command, he extinguished the fire, leaving only scorch marks behind. Grateful, Backdraft thanked the mysterious hero, who responded with a casual farewell before soaring into the sky, disappearing in an instant. The crowd buzzed with curiosity about the new hero's identity. Meanwhile, Ryukyu felt flustered, her body reacting to the overwhelming power she had witnessed. Confused by her own sensations, she questioned why she felt so hot and unsteady. Among the crowd, a blond man expressed his relief, marveling at the display of power he had just witnessed. High above, Izuku, in his normal divine dividing wings, surveyed the city of Mizudafu with satisfaction. However, he was soon reminded by his partner, Albion, of an important task he had forgotten. Apologizing, Izuku descended toward the cafe, determined to fulfill his promise. Albion spoke ominously, a sense of foreboding hanging in the air. Scene change. Namuri Kiyama, known as Midnight the R-rated hero, had been watching a young man for nearly 2 years. Their first encounter had been serendipitous. He had helped her carry her groceries after training. Since then, she found it impossible to shake her fixation on him. His striking emerald eyes, tousled dark green hair, and well-defined physique lingered in her thoughts. She was determined to find him again, her excitement palpable. Meanwhile, Izuku stood tall before the imposing wall of UA College, a smile on his face. Just as he was about to speak, someone bumped into him from behind. It was Katsuki Bakugo, who sneered and told him to watch where he was going. Izuku retorted, pointing out that Katsuki had bumped into him first. As he walked past, Katsuki fell to the ground, and Izuku felt a sense of satisfaction at standing up for himself. No one would bully him, he thought. He wouldn't let anyone look down on him. Chapter end. At UA College of Heroics, Izuku had completed the written exam with confidence. With Albion's vast knowledge at his disposal, he was certain of a perfect score. He even included a challenging question for Principal Nizu, eager to see if his high intellect could match that of a dragon who had lived for centuries. After submitting his paper to present Mike, a dark-haired student called him out, questioning how he had finished so quickly. Izuku explained that his intelligence allowed him to complete the exam efficiently, which only seemed to irritate the other student further. As he left the examination hall, he felt a mix of pride and frustration. He had no time for second-guessing himself. Scene change. After leaving, Izuku sat for an hour and a half, staring at the door that separated him from his dreams. He was surrounded by other contestants, all eager to face the challenges ahead. Albion commented on the nervousness of those around them, calling them weaklings. Just then, Shoyuda Aizawa approached him, looking exhausted. He informed Izuku that he was in the wrong examination. He was supposed to be in the recommendation exam. Izuku's eyes widened in disbelief when he learned that he had been recommended by Midnight and MT Lady. The realization filled him with both excitement and anxiety. Aizawa assured him that his written exam would be taken care of, but Izuku was already determined to join the other contestants. As the signal to start echoed through the air, he took off, propelled by Albion's wings, leaving Aizawa behind in disbelief. Scene change. Izuku called out to Albion, who responded promptly, transforming into white armor that resembled a dragon. With a powerful declaration, Albion prepared for battle. Spotting a three-pointer robot below, Izuku launched himself into action, ready to prove himself. Chapter end. Izuku teamed up with a girl named Mina Ashido, taking on the role of her protector as they approached the robots together, strategizing to maximize their points. Izuku had just gained 23 points and casually mentioned that he was already over 150 points. Mina's eyes widened in disbelief as she exclaimed her shock at his score, causing him to flinch at her sudden outburst. He reassured her that it was no big deal, but she insisted that no one else had that many points. Izuku shrugged it off and encouraged her to focus on taking down the incoming robots. As they continued their search for more robots, they suddenly heard a voice calling for help. They looked in the direction of the sound, noticing the ground shaking and a shadow looming over the buildings. Mina gasped in shock as she recognized the massive zero-pointer. Izuku landed and instructed Mina to stay put while he rushed to help. Mina urged him to save the girl in distress, and Izuku smiled beneath his mask, determined to do just that. He flew toward the giant robot, which was about to crush a brown-haired girl trapped under debris. Izuku realized he lacked the strength to lift the rubble off her leg in time to save her from the zero-pointer. With no other choice, he began to chant as he flew closer to the robot. Albion, his partner, questioned his decision to risk so much for a human. Izuku affirmed his identity as a hero, stating that saving people was his calling. As he chanted, a burst of energy emanated from his armor, illuminating the area. He declared his transformation into the White Dragon of Supremacy, and a massive ball of light enveloped him, growing larger than the zero-pointer itself. The energy surged, revealing a colossal figure. In the UA teacher's viewing room, the teachers watched in astonishment as the mechanical dragon appeared. Power Loader speculated about its purpose, while Midnight commented on the armor's resemblance to Izuku's. Aizawa noted the connection, and Principal Nizu quickly reviewed Izuku's file, revealing that he was quirkless despite the manifestation of the armor. The teachers were stunned by this revelation, and Midnight humorously recalled how Izuku had once referred to her in an unexpected manner, leaving everyone speechless. Meanwhile, Ochako pleaded for help, her consciousness fading as she lay trapped. Suddenly, she saw the enormous white dragon lift the zero-pointer, and she felt a surge of hope. Grateful for her rescue, she noticed her injured leg and pointed to the rubble that had pinned her down. Izuku approached her, carefully removing the debris despite her pain. He offered her support as she struggled to stand, allowing her to lean against his armor. He reassured her that help was on the way, and as the buzzer signaled the end of the exam, she thanked him. Izuku smiled, confident that there were hidden points for saving lives, knowing that being a hero meant more than just fighting villains. Later, at the Midoriya residence, a large 3-story house stood empty. Izuku lived alone, having lost his family after being diagnosed as quirkless. Inko Midoriya had tragically lost her life during a villain attack. Despite the sorrow, Izuku kept a room filled with memories of her, packed with belongings from their old apartment. It had been 2 years since that fateful day. Izuku remembered the call he received that day. His mother had expressed her concern, urging him to come home safely. He assured her he would finish his training before heading back. But then, an explosion shattered the calm, and panic surged through him as he heard her voice, pleading for him not to return home. The last thing he heard was her breathless cry as a villain took hold of her. When he finally made it home, the sight that greeted him was unbearable. His mother lay lifeless, her body twisted in a way that defied nature. In that moment, Izuku felt as if he had lost everything. He had gained power, but at an unimaginable cost. The little boy who dreamed of being a hero was gone, replaced by a burning desire for vengeance. He vowed to honor his mother's memory, promising himself that he would do whatever it took to confront the one who had caused her death. His eyes glowed with determination as he whispered the name of the villain responsible. He would find Muscular. Time passed, and Izuku found himself in a new environment, welcomed to Hero Academia as the top scorer. Despite the accolades, he felt a sense of disillusionment. He recalled a conversation from 3 years prior with All Might, the hero he had idolized. After discovering All Might's secret that he had a time limit on his powers, Izuku had confronted him, hoping for encouragement. Instead, he received a harsh reality check. Without a quirk, he could not become a hero. Feeling defeated, he watched as All Might left him alone, crushed by the weight of his words. Reflecting on his journey, Izuku felt a mix of sadness and resolve. He knew he had to move forward, to believe in his own potential. His partner, Albion, reminded him that doubting himself was unhealthy. With renewed determination, Izuku decided to focus on the future. Just then, a message interrupted his thoughts. It was from Pinky, thanking him for saving her during the exam. The conversation took a playful turn, and despite his initial hesitation, Izuku found himself caught up in the banter. He realized that perhaps this distraction was just what he needed. As he engaged with Pinky, he felt a sense of normalcy returning. Albion encouraged him to embrace the moment, reminding him that it was okay to have fun. Izuku decided to take a leap and answered her video call, ready to enjoy the light-hearted connection. Later, as he drifted off to sleep, his dreams were filled with whimsical thoughts, a welcome escape from the weight of his reality. Meanwhile, Mina Ishido paced outside their classroom, waiting for someone to arrive. Someone special to her had arrived, and it was the first day of school. She wondered if he was late, pacing in her mind as she thought about when he would show up. She was certain he had been accepted. After all, he had over 150 points. If her own scores had gotten her in, then there was no doubt Izuku had made it too. If those two loudmouths had gotten in, he surely did as well. Just as she was about to finish her thought, the door opened, and she turned to see who it was. Green hair and green eyes radiated an aura of confidence that drew everyone's attention. Without hesitation, she ran up to him and embraced him warmly. Izuku smiled slightly, acknowledging her with a casual greeting. She felt a surge of happiness at his presence, and his hand rested on her waist, causing a few students to blush at the sight. He asked her to let him go, but before he could finish, a voice interrupted them. A dark-haired boy, who had previously clashed with Izuku during the entrance exam, admonished them for their behavior. The rest of the class watched in silence, choosing to mind their own business. Mina defended their actions, insisting that hugging was harmless. The boy, Ida, insisted that such behavior was inappropriate for UA students. Mina, undeterred, playfully pointed out that what she had just done was not vulgar. In a surprising move, she pulled Izuku closer, causing their faces to nearly touch, which startled him. She declared that this was indeed inappropriate, leaving Izuku momentarily speechless. Ida expressed his disapproval, urging them to maintain decorum. Izuku sighed, feeling irritation at Ida's insistence on policing their actions. In his mind, Albion echoed his frustration with Ida's attitude. Izuku then called out for someone with an ice quirk to freeze Ida, who seemed oblivious to the tension he was causing. Just then, Bakugo, brimming with anger, confronted Izuku, questioning how he had even made it into UA. Izuku, feeling the heat of the moment, stepped closer to Bakugo, challenging him on his worthiness as a student. Bakugo, unable to contain his fury, lunged at Izuku, but Izuku was ready. He used his quirk, enveloping Bakugo in a blue light that diminished his explosive powers. Bakugo shouted in disbelief, demanding to know what Izuku had done. Izuku calmly explained that he had acted in self-defense, using his ability to weaken Bakugo's quirk. As the confrontation escalated, 3 classmates intervened, stepping between the two to prevent further conflict. Tenya Ida took charge, reminding them that they were there to become heroes, not to settle personal scores. Bakugo, still seething, vowed to put Izuku in his place before retreating to his seat. Mina reassured Izuku to ignore Bakugo, who had become an enemy in her eyes after learning about his bullying. Izuku clenched his fists, struggling to control his anger and the urge to unleash his full power on Bakugo. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension until a cheerful girl opened the door, asking what had happened. Behind her stood a presence that caught Izuku's attention. He greeted their teacher, who appeared exhausted and ready to start the orientation for Class 1B. The teacher instructed them to prepare for the upcoming session, and Kirishima, eager to lead the class, encouraged everyone to follow him. As they moved, Mina playfully pointed out their teacher's resemblance to a yellow caterpillar, trying to stifle her laughter. Izuku, concerned for her, quickly covered her mouth, not wanting her to get in trouble for laughing at their teacher. Mina was being held down by Izuku, still laughing behind his hand. Frustrated, Izuku bit her shoulder to stop her laughter, which only caused a surprised squeal from her. The sight caught the attention of their classmates, leaving Izuku looking startled. Mina stood beside Izuku, surrounded by their classmates and the Class 1B just a few meters away, all seated in neat rows. She turned to Izuku, curious about what was happening. He shrugged, expressing his uncertainty. When he asked his partner, Albion, for insight, Albion pointed out that Mina was revealing his presence to her. Mina, intrigued, asked about Albion, to which Izuku casually explained that he was the ancient dragon residing in his mind. Mina's eyes widened in surprise at the mention of an ancient dragon. She cupped Izuku's cheeks and declared how awesome her boyfriend was, giving him a cute kiss on the nose. Albion, feeling a pang of jealousy, expressed his frustration at being a dragon without a physical form or a mate. Izuku, hearing Albion's thoughts, retorted playfully, calling him a silly name. Meanwhile, Albion sensed the presence of a weak sacred gear among the students, identifying it as belonging to one of Issei Hayadu's companions. Izuku's curiosity was piqued as he wondered who wielded the twilight healing power. Mina, eager to engage, asked if she could say hi to Albion. Izuku nodded, and Albion greeted her, explaining the significance of the term mate. Mina, intrigued, discovered a neon blue dragon insignia tattoo on her chest, which made her excited about her new tattoo. Izuku sighed at her bubbly reaction, feeling a mix of amusement and exasperation. As the orientation continued, Vlad King, the blood hero, addressed the students, highlighting the various facilities available at the school. He encouraged them to read the pamphlet in their spare time, and Izuku expressed his interest in trying out the gyms. Albion, eager for knowledge, asked if they could visit the library, which Izuku agreed to. After the orientation, the class dispersed to explore. Mina clung to Izuku, asking where they should start. He suggested the cafeteria, and she excitedly dragged him along, referring to him and Albion as her scary dog privilege. Izuku acknowledged her charm, feeling a sense of warmth from her affection. At the cafeteria, Mina playfully fed Izuku, treating him like a child. He protested, insisting he could feed himself, but she persisted, feeding him a spoonful of minced beef. Albion, witnessing the scene, felt a mix of embarrassment and amusement at Izuku's predicament. Meanwhile, at another table, Momo Yaoyorozu and Kyoka Jairu observed the playful interaction between Mina and Izuku. Jairu questioned if they realized they were in a cafeteria, while Momo found their dynamic sweet, despite her sheltered understanding of romance. Jairu noted Izuku's appeal, and Momo couldn't help but agree, both girls sharing a moment of admiration for him. Jairu insisted that she didn't have a crush on him, her cheeks slightly flushed as she defended herself. She acknowledged that he looked good, more charismatic than any guy in their class, and noted his confidence, something she felt she lacked. At another table, Katsuki Bakugo sat alone, glaring at Izuku, who was being fed by Mina like a baby. Katsuki was frustrated, questioning how someone he believed to be quirkless could suddenly display such prowess. He vowed to put Izuku in his place, his eyes glowing with determination. An ancient voice echoed in Katsuki's mind, challenging him to prove his dominance. He was startled but quickly responded with confidence, declaring himself the best and dismissing others as mere extras. The voice urged him to show his true power, and a red gauntlet materialized on his arm, amplifying his sense of strength. Meanwhile, Izuku observed Katsuki with a smirk, noting the unexpected appearance of the boosted gear. He felt unthreatened, confident in his own abilities, including the balance breaker and juggernaut drive. He pondered the whereabouts of Issei Haidu, the original Red Dragon Emperor, and realized that the signature he sensed was weaker than expected. This only fueled his amusement, as he anticipated Katsuki's struggles. Izuku reflected on the bullying he had endured from Katsuki, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. He was determined to confront him, knowing that his transformation into a hybrid would grant him enhanced abilities. Albion, his dragon partner, expressed concern but acknowledged the potential benefits of Izuku's plan. As Izuku's eyes transformed from emerald green to golden yellow with red slits, he released a draconic aura that startled Katsuki, who jumped out of his seat, ready to fight. Izuku felt disappointment at Katsuki's reaction, considering it an embarrassing display. Izuku contemplated a plan that would take advantage of Katsuki's newfound power, knowing it was a risky move. He picked up his phone, ready to set his plan in motion. Katsuki, now brimming with confidence, dismissed Izuku's achievements and felt a tug at his attention. A redhead approached him, curious about his feelings toward Mina's boyfriend. Katsuki's irritation grew at the mention of Izuku, but he saw an opportunity to ally with someone who shared his disdain for Mina. The redhead recounted her grievances about Mina stealing the spotlight, and Katsuki listened intently, a sinister smile forming as they locked eyes, both sharing a mutual understanding of their shared goal. In the midst of their conversation, a villain shouted in triumph, hurling a car at a hero, emphasizing the chaos that surrounded them. The villain boasted about the weakness of the heroes just as the dragon hero arrived to save the day. The villain expressed excitement at finally facing a challenge, while the dragon hero, Ryukyu, felt a wave of uncertainty wash over her as she realized she couldn't take on Muscular alone without backup. Deep within her, a figure emerged, accompanied by a voice that resonated in her mind, offering assistance and strength. Ryukyu was taken aback, questioning the identity of the voice as Muscular observed her with a mocking expression. The villain taunted her, suggesting that fear had driven her to madness. However, in an instant, Ryukyu transformed into her dragon form, her scales gleaming blue with silver accents, and her eyes glowing with a fierce golden light. The voice within her introduced itself as Tiamat, urging Ryukyu to harness this newfound power and seek her mate. Accepting the deal, Ryukyu felt the surge of strength coursing through her. As the battle raged on, the heroes watched from the sidelines, surprised by the transformation of Ryukyu's scales. One hero questioned whether they should intervene, but another quickly dismissed the idea, insisting they would only be a liability. Tiamat guided Ryukyu's movements, pointing out openings in Muscular's attacks. With precision, Ryukyu struck Muscular's left kneecap, causing him to howl in pain. Enraged, Muscular lunged at her, but she easily dodged. Tiamat's voice grew urgent, warning her that she was losing the power she had assimilated. Ryukyu knew she had to act quickly, and with a burst of determination, she aimed for Muscular's vital organs, unleashing her full strength. In that moment, her transformation faltered, forcing her back into her human form. As she knelt on the ground, exhausted, Muscular laughed, vowing revenge before fleeing the scene. Ryukyu lost consciousness just as her fellow heroes rushed to her side. One heroine urged the others to pursue the injured villain while she checked on Ryukyu, relieved to hear the rhythm of her heartbeat. Meanwhile, Ryukyu found herself in a vast, white expanse, disoriented and alone. A familiar voice called to her, and she turned to see Tiamat, who reassured her and promised to explain her purpose. In a different part of Yu, Izuku was walking through the hallways when he sensed a powerful energy, recognizing it as dragon-like. His partner, Albion, confirmed it was indeed a dragon but couldn't identify who it was. Izuku speculated it might be Ryukyu and decided to investigate further. As he searched for answers, he encountered Nijire Hado, a second-year student. He greeted her warmly and asked if she could spare some time to discuss her quirk. She eagerly agreed, sharing that her quirk, wave motion, allowed her to project energy in a spiral wave, though it could drain her stamina. Izuku took notes, excitedly asking if she had tried different techniques to enhance her ability. Nijire expressed interest in spending more time with him, but Izuku hesitated, mentioning that his girlfriend might get jealous. The conversation continued, filled with curiosity and enthusiasm as they exchanged ideas and experiences. She could join them, the more, the merrier. With that thought, Izuku took out his phone and messaged his girlfriend to come along. He typed a quick message, letting her know that he had a lively senpai with him who would be fun to meet. He received an enthusiastic reply, expressing her excitement to join and her curiosity about their training methods. Izuku instructed her to wait at the water fountain, and she agreed, promising to see him soon. As they walked, a strange occurrence unfolded just beyond the building, in the teacher's lounge where no one was present. A swirling portal of purple mist appeared, and a figure emerged. This must be the teacher's lounge. Fortunately, our little Trojan horse has already arrived, or we would have no way of getting in, the figure mused, snatching a few papers from a teacher's desk. Among them was a document containing crucial information about the school's schedule. Just as he was about to leave, a blur crashed through the wall, seizing him by the neck and sending them both tumbling outside. Izuku, feeling an unsettling aura from the figure, demanded to know who he was, sensing something unnatural about him. The misty figure regained his composure and prepared to escape through a portal. Izuku attempted to strike, but the villain vanished before he could make contact. Frustrated, Izuku realized he needed to inform Principal Nizu about the incident and quickly sent a text to Mina, letting her know he would be late. He felt a strange connection to the villain he had just fought, particularly a pleading voice that lingered in his mind. It echoed a desperate request for help, and he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this encounter than he understood. In the principal's office, Izuku burst through the door, alerting Nizu to the situation. The principal's expression turned serious as he listened to Izuku explain the theft of important documents from the teacher's lounge. Izuku's demeanor shifted from his usual playful self to one of grave concern as he shared his theory about a potential traitor within UA. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, and the tension in the room grew palpable. Meanwhile, Aizawa awoke to the sound of an alarm, realizing there was an emergency meeting called by Nizu. He reluctantly prepared to join the other teachers, wondering what could be so urgent. In the principal's office, all the staff gathered, shocked to hear about the attack on the teacher's lounge. Midnight expressed her confusion about why villains would target UA, while Present Mike pointed out Izuku's presence, curious about his involvement. Izuku explained that he had confronted the villain and showed them the crumpled papers left behind. Aizawa recognized the documents as belonging to classes 1A and 1B. Izuku detailed the villain's ability to create portals and shared his unsettling experience of sensing the creature's life force, leading him to believe it was not truly alive. His words struck a chord with the teachers, especially when he mentioned feeling a presence trapped within the villain. The atmosphere grew tense as Izuku revealed that the voice he heard pleaded for help, repeating a name that sent shivers through Aizawa. As emotions ran high, Midnight and Present Mike comforted Aizawa, who was visibly shaken. Izuku's revelation about the trapped soul connected deeply with them, igniting a sense of urgency to uncover the truth behind the villain's actions and the fate of the soul that cried out for salvation. Midnight gently cupped Izuku's cheeks, urging him to share more. Izuku noticed the concern in her eyes, feeling a mix of pity and determination. He gently pried her hands away and continued speaking, revealing the important information he had. With his keen hearing, he had overheard the villain mention something about a Trojan horse before he confronted him. He walked over to Nizu's chessboard, picked up a rook piece, and raised it for everyone to see. He declared that UA had a traitor among them. Looking at each teacher, he clarified that it was not one of them, as the villain had mentioned that their Trojan horse had been in the lounge at least once. He doubted any teacher had only visited the lounge a single time. Crossing his arms, he suggested that a student was the traitor, someone determined enough to collaborate with a villain. Vladkin questioned whether they would have to suspect every student. Izuku admitted he had his suspicions but would keep them to himself until he gathered more evidence. When he mentioned the personal nature of his feelings regarding the villain, a palpable intensity filled the room. He spoke of a villain who had taken his mother's life, vowing to find him and unleash his wrath. As he left, he closed the door behind him, leaving the others to process his words. Nizu, regaining his composure first, instructed Aizawa to keep an eye on Izuku, aware of the dangerous potential within him. Aizawa acknowledged the seriousness of the situation. Midnight excused herself, intending to follow Izuku. Nizu, with his instinctual awareness, felt the weight of Izuku's intent. He expressed concern about the intensity of Izuku's feelings, which surpassed any villain he had encountered. Both Aizawa and All Might shared this sentiment. Nizu ordered his staff to treat Izuku with special consideration, ensuring he felt secure at UA, even if it meant overlooking certain behaviors. Meanwhile, Midnight caught up with Izuku, asking him to stop walking. She revealed that she had adopted a little girl. As she focused her energy, a figure appeared, causing Izuku's eyes to widen in shock. Before him stood Ophis, the dragon god of infinity, leaving Izuku and Albion in disbelief. Albion, feeling overwhelmed, questioned whether Izuku was truly seeing what he thought he was. Izuku crouched down to Ophis's level, pinching her cheeks in disbelief, while Albion urged him to be careful. Ophis casually addressed Izuku as her father, leaving Albion stunned. Izuku, bewildered, sought answers from Albion, who remained silent. He realized he had unintentionally become the father of the dragon of infinity. Ophis then spread her arms, asking to be picked up, which left Izuku momentarily speechless. After a moment of hesitation, he scooped her up into his arms. Ophis thanked him in her usual emotionless manner. Midnight teased them, commenting on how they looked like a real father and daughter. Izuku felt a mix of irritation and embarrassment. As they walked through the hallways, Ophis remained blissfully unaware of the earlier conversation. Izuku mentally lamented Albion's lack of support, feeling frustrated with his partner's silence. Albion was frustrated with his partner, feeling unfairly blamed for their situation. Izuku, deep in thought, began to consider that perhaps he was at fault. Albion sighed, acknowledging the truth of the matter. Izuku felt the weight of urgency as he prepared to address his classmates. Once everyone was present, he announced that they were under threat, revealing that the earlier alert was not just a warning but a serious concern. Ida, visibly confused and worried, raised his hand and asked how Izuku could be sure that the danger was real and not just a fabrication by reporters. Izuku agreed that it was a valid question but urged his classmates to think critically. He pointed out that reporters would risk their credibility by going that far. He continued, explaining that he had encountered a reconnaissance agent who attempted to steal important documents from the teachers. Izuku had fought the individual, managing to thwart the attempt just in time. His classmates were astonished that he had faced a villain head-on while still being a student. Kirishima praised Izuku for his bravery, while Bakugo grumbled under his breath, skeptical of Izuku's claims. Izuku shot back, reminding Bakugo that he had bested him in the past. Bakugo seethed with frustration, feeling provoked but knowing better than to retaliate. Izuku then shifted the conversation, indicating that there was something more pressing at hand. He pointed to each classmate, building suspense. Mina playfully questioned if something was wrong, to which Izuku ominously declared that one of them was a traitor. The atmosphere grew tense as he locked eyes with Yuga Aoyama, though he quickly dismissed the thought. Momo Yaoyorozu, curious and analytical, asked how Izuku could be so certain. Izuku, with a wink, referred to her as the beautiful goddess of Class 1A, leaving her flustered and questioning his intentions. Mina teased Izuku about his compliment, but he defended himself, acknowledging her point. Returning to the topic, Izuku explained that the villain he fought had mentioned a Trojan, implying that the threat was someone close to them, someone who had gained their trust. He urged his classmates to remain vigilant, as the traitor could be among them. As he walked towards Aoyama, he whispered a taunt, hinting at his suspicions. Izuku continued to interact with his classmates, asking them light-hearted questions while keeping the atmosphere casual. He made sure to avoid raising any alarms, even with Bakugo, who was irritated by Izuku's jabs. As he concluded his warnings, he slyly reminded everyone to stay alert, hinting that the spy was closer than they thought. Momo's eyes widened at the mention of Mon Ami, realizing that only she and Aoyama spoke French. She locked eyes with Izuku, sensing that he was giving her a clue. Izuku, meanwhile, was amused by Momo's thoughtful expression, wondering what was going through her mind. He winked at her, enjoying the moment. When the break bell rang, Izuku waited in a corner for Aoyama. As Aoyama approached, Izuku quickly grabbed his arm, silencing him with a hand over his mouth. He spoke coldly, warning Aoyama to comply or face dire consequences. Aoyama nodded, sensing the seriousness of the situation. Izuku released Aoyama, demanding answers. He pointed out that Aoyama had reacted nervously when the topic of a traitor was mentioned. As he traced Aoyama's neck with a blade, he warned him not to test his patience. Aoyama, trembling with fear, struggled to respond, realizing the gravity of the threat posed by Izuku. Izuku, with a keen sense of intuition, declared that he could detect lies, emphasizing that Aoyama could not hide from him. Now tell him, was he the spy or not? For a moment, Aoyama's world stopped. He felt the weight of a threat pressing down on him. One of his feet was already teetering on the edge of danger if he lied now. Fear gripped him like never before, a fear that even All for One couldn't instill. He admitted to being All for One's spy, dropping to his knees as dread overcame him. Izuku retracted his knife, slipping it back into his pocket. He turned his back on Aoyama, who looked shocked by the nonchalance in Izuku's demeanor. Izuku explained that Aoyama would have to enjoy his role as a spy, as he wouldn't reveal anything. He added a chilling warning about his girlfriend, Mina, and the consequences if she were harmed. Aoyama trembled, understanding the seriousness of Izuku's words. He nodded in agreement, knowing he was now a pawn in Izuku's game. Izuku waved Aoyama off, who fled as if his life depended on it. Alone now, Izuku's mind was already racing with plans. Albion, his partner, sensed the shift in Izuku's focus and questioned his intentions. Izuku confirmed that he was indeed planning something while watching Aoyama disappear from view. He then decided to engage in a mental game of strategy with All for One. As he moved on, he spotted Mina searching for him. She jumped into his arms, and he carried her while Ophis walked beside them, puzzled by the scene unfolding. They passed by Ibara Shiozaki, who was enjoying her meal in the cafeteria. Albion alerted Izuku that she possessed something they needed: twilight healing. Izuku shared his curiosity about how a sacred gear ended up in their world. Ibara sensed a gaze upon her and looked around, aware that someone was watching. She prayed for forgiveness for those who might have inappropriate thoughts about her. Albion noted Ibara's sharpness, realizing she was no ordinary student. Izuku, wanting to learn more about her, smiled sincerely, trying to appear friendly rather than intrusive. Ibara wondered why he was smiling at her, recalling warnings about stalkers. Despite her reservations about the public display of affection between Izuku and Mina, she returned his smile, albeit awkwardly. Izuku's thoughts wandered, misinterpreting her reaction, while Albion scolded him for his assumptions. Meanwhile, Momo Yaoyorozu observed Izuku, puzzled by his calm demeanor and his conclusions about Aoyama being the traitor. She questioned how he had come to such a conclusion while feeling a sense of frustration at her own inability to read the situation. She couldn't shake the fixation she had on him, contemplating the depth of his strategies and how far ahead he seemed to be. Izuku needed the assertive and physical love language that Astrid displayed whenever she felt inclined. With Astrid's encouragement, he gained self-confidence, allowing him to stand up to Bakugo without fear. The story would explore both world-building and the development of feelings over time, as Izuku contemplated what kind of enhancements he might give Astrid and which dragon would be compatible with Ochako. Izuku had been elected as class representative, receiving votes from Momo, Ida, Aoyama, Kaminari, Mina, Ojiro, and surprisingly, Mineta. He expressed his gratitude to the class, bowing slightly and promising not to disappoint. Momo, blushing slightly, affirmed that he deserved the role. Bakugo, however, was furious about the vote. Kaminari responded to Bakugo's outrage, reminding him that they were not voting for him. Before Bakugo could retort, Izuku shot him a glare, asserting his authority as class representative by ordering him to keep quiet. Bakugo simmered with anger but remained silent. Drake warned him not to act rashly, and Bakugo snapped back in frustration. Izuku observed Bakugo calming down and couldn't help but smirk to himself, thinking, "Good boy." With Aizawa still asleep, Izuku instructed the class to review their notes. After settling back into his seat, Mina texted him, expressing her excitement about his victory. Izuku replied confidently, teasing her about his winning streak. Mina admired his confidence and wished she could share it. Izuku playfully suggested that she could have it later, knowing she wouldn't refuse him. He set his phone down with a smile, and Mina, catching his sly expression, whispered to herself that she wouldn't be walking properly the next day. Despite still limping from their previous night's activities, Aizawa informed the class that they would be visiting the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, USJ. As they gathered outside, Izuku organized them into two lines, separating boys and girls. Jairu was first in line, playfully acknowledging his command. Izuku's gaze lingered on her as she entered the bus, momentarily distracted by her presence. Albion interrupted his thoughts, warning him to keep his focus. Izuku glanced back to see Jur teasingly ask if he liked the view before taking her seat, grateful that no one else heard her comment. He mused that Mina would be upset with him for his distraction. On the bus, Izuku sat between Jairu and Mina, with Momo beside Mina. Mina leaned in, asking if they could change seats for privacy. Izuku agreed, and they moved to the back of the bus, where Mina playfully initiated a more NTMT moment. Meanwhile, Jairu, sitting nearby, felt flustered by the sounds coming from the couple, realizing she was unexpectedly affected by the situation. Upon arriving at USJ, Izuku led the group inside, eager to see what Aizawa had planned for them. Mina excitedly followed him, much to Aizawa's exasperation. As they walked, Kirishima complimented Izuku on his costume, which he had designed himself. Izuku felt a bit embarrassed by the praise, while Albion encouraged him to embrace his accomplishments. Mina held Izuku's hand as they strolled together, resembling a couple. She took a selfie of them, excited to share it on her social media. Despite the attention he received from other students, Izuku felt overwhelmed by the constant praise. Aizawa interrupted their moment, reminding them to focus as they arrived at their destination. The atmosphere buzzed with excitement as a figure emerged from the shadows, introducing herself as their co-professor for the day. Ochako recognized her immediately, exclaiming in delight, which brought smiles to everyone except Aizawa and 13. As they approached the stairs, Izuku suddenly sensed something amiss. He called for everyone to stop, drawing their attention as he pointed toward a suspicious area. At the fountain, Izuku shouted as a thick, gassy purple smoke materialized, swirling into a portal from which a hand emerged. Dozens of villains began to pour out of the purple portal. Kirishima exclaimed how awesome UA was, believing the villains to be fake, but Aizawa quickly intervened, positioning himself protectively in front of the students. He commanded 13 to evacuate everyone, and 13 nodded in agreement, rushing to gather the students. A pale man with blue hair proclaimed that the heroes would soon drown in their own despair, and that inexperienced heroes would be sacrificed to summon all might. Izuku turned to Aoyama, realizing this was the attack he had warned about. He felt a surge of excitement at the prospect of facing the villains, particularly the mastermind, Tamura Shigaraki. Izuku taunted Shigaraki, mocking his choice of words. Shigaraki, irritated, shouted back, claiming he was a high-level player while Izuku dismissed him as just a grunt. Izuku spread his arms wide, declaring that in this game of life, he was not merely a player but the admin, and with that he charged forward. Izuku's thoughts raced as he assessed the situation. He understood that the blue-haired villain and the one with the warp quirk were the most dangerous threats. He called out to his partner, Albion, to scan for hidden villains. Albion reported detecting a necro-based humanoid creature near the pale-haired man. Izuku knew he had to act quickly. He moved swiftly, dodging attacks from Kurojairi, who sought to warp him away. Mina shouted her concern for his safety, and Izuku nodded briefly before continuing to evade. He taunted Kurojairi, trying to provoke the villains into making mistakes. He aimed his jabs at Shigaraki, knowing how to get under his skin. Shigaraki lunged at Izuku, ready to unleash his destructive power. Izuku stood atop the fountain, challenging him further. As Shigaraki grew angrier, Izuku prepared to counterattack. He focused intently, ready to turn the tide. Just then, Shigaraki's hand reached for Izuku, but Izuku was quicker. He retaliated, causing Shigaraki to cry out in pain as he clutched his arm, realizing he had lost a hand in the encounter. Izuku paused, relishing the moment, but then he sensed a powerful presence as the camouflage quirk of the Nomu faded away. He called for Albion, who responded by materializing armor around Izuku's body. Shigaraki scoffed, underestimating the armor's effectiveness against the Nomu, and commanded it to attack. The Nomu charged at Izuku, landing a punch that Izuku brushed off with a smirk, taunting Shigaraki further. Shigaraki was shaken, realizing that Izuku was toying with the creature he believed could rival All Might. Izuku declared that he was simply stronger than All Might, causing Shigaraki's fear to grow. As portals opened, more villains emerged, their faces twisted with anger and hatred towards the heroes. Meanwhile, Kaminari expressed his concern for Izuku, fearing what would happen if he lost. Aizawa reassured the students to stay put while he jumped into the fray to assist Izuku. Fear gripped everyone, especially Mina and Momo, who watched anxiously, hoping for Izuku's victory. Mina and Momo shared a silent concern for Izuku's safety. Izuku's thoughts raced as he faced the threat before him. He couldn't allow them to pass. His classmates would be in danger. Using his most powerful ability would cause destruction around him. He taunted Shigaraki, noting how prepared he seemed for someone who acted like a spoiled brat, while he sent the Nomu crashing into a corner of the UF. He couldn't help but laugh at the creature's strength, wondering if they truly believed they were at the top of the food chain. They were hopeless. Kurojairi manifested a portal behind him and Shigaraki, urging him to retreat due to the danger. For a moment, Shigaraki hesitated, but then his resolve returned. He declared that they would defeat All Might right then and there as the Nomu stood back up, fully healed from Izuku's punch. Just as Shigaraki began to issue orders, Izuku struck, his arm piercing through Shigaraki's abdomen. He retracted his arm, and Shigaraki fell to the ground, defeated and unconscious. Kurogiri quickly created a warp portal beneath Shigaraki and closed it, vowing that his master would hear of this. He commanded the Nomu to return, and the creature complied, disappearing into the portal. Izuku taunted Kurogiri, letting him know he was waiting for All for One, who could serve as a good warm-up. Kurogiri's eyes widened in surprise at the statement, and he ominously warned Izuku that they would meet again. Izuku's thoughts lingered on All for One, knowing he would wait for their inevitable confrontation. Meanwhile, students and Aizawa, along with 13, rushed to Izuku to deal with the remaining villains. Aizawa reprimanded him for his reckless actions, while 13 echoed his concerns. Izuku explained that as the class representative, he had a responsibility to protect his classmates. The day continued, and the class returned to UA, receiving a week off due to the villain attack. In an unknown laboratory, Shigaraki floated in a transparent tube filled with a healing liquid. All for One observed his student, reflecting on Shigaraki's failure to think strategically. He considered the powerful quirk that could be advantageous in his final confrontation with All Might. All for One stood with his trusted doctor, Kyodai Garaki, as they examined Shigaraki's condition. Garaki assured him that Shigaraki would recover in a few days, but All for One expressed disappointment at his student's performance. He noted that the data from the Nomu was not worth much, pondering what quirk had allowed Izuku to defeat it so easily. Garaki informed him that Izuku possessed a quirk that allowed him to summon white armor, significantly enhancing his strength. All for One's sinister smile revealed his intentions to acquire that quirk for himself. He vowed that he would have Izuku's quirk one day, determined to make it his own. As Izuku sat through class again, he sensed something was amiss, especially with Aizawa's somber demeanor. Aizawa informed the class that they needed to prepare for the upcoming sports festival. Kaminari's shocked reaction prompted Aizawa to clarify that there was no villain attack, but rather an opportunity for the students to shine. Katsuki Bakugo grinned, thinking about how he would prove himself superior to Izuku. Izuku sighed, recognizing the familiar ego trip from Bakugo. Despite the challenges ahead, he felt excitement for the sports festival, knowing it would be a chance to showcase his abilities and fulfill his mission to inspire hope for the quirkless population. As recess approached and the bell rang, the students headed for the door. Ida opened it, only to be met with a crowd of people. He exclaimed in surprise, trying to navigate through the throng. Frustrated, he attempted to assert himself, but his patience was tested as he was pushed aside. I mean, who would just push someone aside by their face? As a guy with purple hair entered the room, he remarked on the reputation of Class 1A, questioning their worth after surviving a villain attack. Izuku confronted him, towering over the cocky student who appeared sleep-deprived. The boy retorted, his confidence evident, but Izuku countered, expressing his frustration at the notion that their survival was merely a publicity stunt. Mina, sensing Izuku's rising anger, grasped his arm, urging him to calm down. She reminded him that engaging with the provocateur wasn't worth it. However, another student with blonde hair interrupted, declaring Class 1A to be a bunch of arrogant individuals. Momo glared at him, her disdain for Nito Monoma clear. Monoma shouted back, furious at Momo's comment, but Izuku defended her, feeling a hand on his shoulder. Shoto Todoroki spoke in his usual monotone, advising Izuku to ignore the taunts. Bakugo, standing in front of them, confronted Monoma directly, using a small explosion as a warning. Uraraka, who hadn't eaten breakfast, protested, pointing out their hunger. The tension eased as the crowd parted, realizing their behavior resembled that of villains. At the UA Sports Festival Stadium, thousands of spectators filled the seats, enjoying snacks and drinks as they awaited the students' introduction. Present Mike announced Class 1A, highlighting their survival against villains, which drew mixed reactions. Izuku sighed, feeling the weight of attention on him. Then, Class 1B entered, led by Itsuka Kendo, catching Izuku's interest. He wondered about her quirk, but his thoughts were interrupted by a voice in his head, chastising him for his wandering mind. As other classes were introduced, Midnight took the stage, preparing to kick off the sports festival. She called upon Izuku, who walked up beside her. She leaned in, whispering a playful comment that made him feel uneasy. Taking the microphone, Izuku gathered his thoughts. He wanted to fight not just for himself but for the quirkless individuals, aiming to send them a message. With Midnight's assistance, he donned quirk suppressors on his arms and raised them high. He declared that even a quirkless person could be a hero, affirming his resolve with a powerful statement. The first match was announced, a race around the entire area, culminating at the finish line. "Good luck, Mina," Izuku said, touching her shoulder. She smiled back at him. "You too," she replied just as the buzzer sounded. With a loud "go," everyone jostled for position, eager to get ahead. Izuku's movements were extraordinary as he dashed forward. "Too slow, everyone," he called out, leading the pack of determined competitors. Realizing he had to act, Shoto Todoroki quickly created a glacier behind him, slowing down some students, but Momo, Bakugo, and others managed to escape just in time. "Get back here, Deku and Icy Hot," Bakugo shouted, using his enhanced quirk. Izuku thought to himself, "Too slow, everyone. I may not have a quirk, but I still left you behind." He was already meters ahead of the rest. "Look at that, people. Midoriya is in the lead even without a quirk," Present Mike announced, while Aizawa nodded in agreement from the stands. As Izuku approached the first obstacle, he muttered, "Same old faux villain robots." He skillfully dodged an attack and cartwheeled away from another. "These things are getting boring. Is there nothing new?" he whispered before sprinting ahead, leaving the robots to deal with the other students. Meanwhile, chaos erupted among the students. "Are they trying to take us out? Why are these robots here?" a student from the support course yelled, using his propulsion boots to evade an attack. "This is insane," he exclaimed as he tried to escape. "Folks, Midoriya just reached his first obstacle, the fall. How will he handle this? Stay tuned," Mike announced, while Aizawa sighed beside him. Izuku faced the first real challenge, the fall. "Looks like we're doing this the ninja way," he decided, jumping onto the cable and running along it with remarkable balance. In the stands, some spectators debated. "Are they sure he's quirkless? Is that thing even working?" one hero questioned, doubtful of Izuku's quirk suppressors. "I don't know, but it looks like he's using pure balance and agility, just like Edge Shot," another hero replied. After navigating the fall, Izuku glanced back. "So those slowpokes finally caught up," he said, picking up speed while maintaining it. Pace of 30 to 50 km/h. "Not for long, suckers," he shouted, but then noticed something that irritated him. "You've got to be kidding me. More of those junk robots." Closing the distance, he ran along the massive robot's arms. "There you are," he said before disabling the robot by kicking a button on its neck. Power Loader should have thought more about these robots. "They're clunky at best," he murmured. After disabling the second faux robot, Izuku moved fluidly, launching off the bot's shoulder and landing silently on a narrow scaffold, barely disturbing the metal beneath him. And he's off again. Midoriya's putting on a show. "Look at that body control," Present Mike shouted. "I've been monitoring his vitals. No boosters, no enhancements. Just pure training," Aizawa remarked, arms crossed. "He's optimized every part of himself." In the obstacle course, Bakugo blasted through debris, eyes fixed on the green blur ahead. "DMNU, Deku," he yelled. "Who gave you permission to be this fast?" Todoroki, not far behind, narrowed his eyes. "He's not using any tech or quirks. Just muscle memory. He said he would fight quirkless, but this is unbelievable. Meanwhile, I'm handicapping myself," he thought, glancing at his unused fireside. Momo, vaulting over fallen robot parts, frowned. It's like his entire body is trained to solve every problem. The second obstacle, a minefield, lay ahead. Izuku slowed his breath, his pupils dilating as he calculated his next move. A mine exploded behind him, triggered by a pressure delay he had calculated. 3x3 spacing, shallow compression triggers. Power loader style is consistent. He leapt sideways, adjusting his balance mid-air, sliding across a slope with remarkable fluidity. Students at the back struggled, some triggering mines while others used quirks to evade. One from the support course yelled, "Is that guy a machine?" "Folks, I can't believe my eyes. Midoriya just predicted the entire minefield without help." Present Mike exclaimed, his voice strained. "No quirks. No support items. This is raw talent." "No, not talent," Aizawa muttered. "This is obsession." Reaching the edge of the minefield, Izuku sprinted toward the final stretch, a massive steel mountain designed to slow everyone down. Gravity, friction, instability. He calculated everything at once. He leapt, grabbed an edge, and didn't stop. His arms burned, lungs strained, but his grip remained firm. His fingers were scraped, but his focus never wavered. Every movement was deliberate and controlled. Below him, the others finally caught up. "Get out of my way!" Bakugo shouted, exploding upward in a burst of fire. "I'm taking you down." "I can't hear you," Izuku called back, distant but determined. Todoroki froze a slope to climb quickly, while Momo created footholds. But even they were just reaching the midsection of the mountain as Izuku reached the summit. He exhaled, chest rising and falling rapidly, sweat pouring off him, but he didn't stop. "No support gear. No enhanced shoes. No grappling hook," murmured a pro-hero in the stands. "What is this kid?" another hero replied. "He's what we could have been if we didn't have quirks to rely on." With a final leap, Izuku soared down the other side of the mountain, bending his knees on impact and rolling to absorb the shock perfectly. He rose and sprinted toward the entrance of the stadium, nearing the finish. Dust flared behind him as the tape snapped across his waist. And that's it. Izuku Midoriya, the quirkless underdog, finishes first. Mike shouted. The crowd erupted in cheers. The ground shook from the aftershocks of others finishing the race, but Izuku stood tall, panting heavily, fists clenched at his sides. A camera drone hovered nearby, and he looked directly at it. "No quirks. No excuses. Train harder," he declared, his message broadcasted for all to hear. In the commentator booth, Aizawa leaned back, taking it all in. The thunder of the stadium still echoed in the lounge halls as Izuku stepped through the door, sweat-drenched, blood drying on his palms, yet calm as ever. Every student inside shifted, eyes tracking him like he was some kind of anomaly. Because he was. No quirk. No support gear. Just grit, speed, and brainpower. Izuku didn't look at anyone. He walked to the nearest bench, sat down, and began rapping his knuckles with the medical tape provided. He moved quietly, methodically. Then a sing-song voice, soft but laced with pride, called out to him. Mina Ashido jogged over and dropped down beside him, flushed and smiling. She leaned her cheek on his shoulder, expressing her admiration. Izuku looked at her sideways and gave a quiet smile. She continued, acknowledging his incredible feats. He chuckled faintly, questioning if she was truly okay with him leaving her behind. Mina, with unwavering support, assured him that she would always be his #1 fan. The fire in her eyes reflected her fierce pride in him. The stadium stirred again when the heavy doors slammed open, and Midnight strode in with her usual flair. She welcomed the survivors of the first round to their next challenge, and the screen behind her flickered to life, displaying bold, blinking letters, "Cavalry Battle." Groans rippled across the room. Midnight continued, explaining the standard rules but with higher stakes. The first-place holder, Midoriya Izuku, was worth 10 million points. Silence fell as every eye snapped to him. Izuku looked up slowly, thoughtful but not rattled. He muttered to himself, realizing he needed to use his abilities strategically. Mina, ever supportive, declared that she wouldn't let anyone near him. As the group scrambled to form teams, Momo Yaoyorozu approached with confidence, assuming Izuku would be the rider. He confirmed this and asked her to carry him. Surprised but smiling, she agreed. Mei Hatsum then appeared, eager to see how Izuku would perform without tech. Izuku assessed the three of them, Momo, Mina, Mei. They formed a solid base with mobility, defense, and power. He confirmed the formation, instructing them on their roles to keep him mobile while ensuring their safety. In the stadium, President Mick's voice boomed through the speakers, announcing the start of the cavalry battle. Team Midoriya stood tall at the center, with Izuku balanced like a commander on a war chariot. He scanned the field, his sharp green eyes cutting through the chaos. As Tetsu and Ibra attempted a corner rush, Izuku quickly directed his team to shift and prepare a shield. They moved as one, trusting him without question. Meanwhile, Todoroki's team observed silently, recognizing Izuku's commanding presence. In the center of the chaos, Izuku shouted about an incoming updraft, and Mina reassured him that she had him covered. A sudden wind burst from a rival team, but Team Midoriya held steady, demonstrating perfect coordination. Izuku grinned, ready for the challenge. With 30 seconds left, they found themselves surrounded by multiple teams. He commanded them to hold formation and bait the others in before breaking left. They executed the maneuver flawlessly, evading their opponents. The buzzer rang, signaling their survival and victory in the battle. Izuku exhaled, finally letting the tension slip from his shoulders. He looked down at the three girls, all sweaty and tired but beaming with pride. Mina smiled up at him, affirming their teamwork. The battlefield had changed. Gone were the team strategies and terrain hazards. What remained was a wide circular arena, a single opponent, and the expectation to dominate or be dominated. The 1v1 tournament bracket hovered in the air on a large digital screen, and whispers ran through the crowd. Match 1. Izuku Midoriya vs Hitoshi Shinso. Inside the prep area, tension crackled. Izuku stood still, arms relaxed, eyes sharp, ready to strike. Mina stood beside him, arms folded, watching Shinso from across the hallway. She expressed her distrust of Shinso, noting that he seemed dangerous and desperate. Izuku acknowledged her concerns but reassured her that he had trained for this moment. Mina reminded him of his strength, and he softly affirmed his resolve, embodying the spirit of a dragon. As the match began, Midnight shouted for the start. The buzzer sounded, and both students stepped into the circle. Shinso approached slowly, hands in his pockets, questioning Izuku's confidence and popularity. Izuku remained silent, focusing on the challenge ahead. Izuku remained focused, though his foot shifted slightly. Shinso taunted him, urging him to respond. Instinctively, Izuku replied, realizing too late the mistake he had made. Suddenly, the world around him came to a halt. Everything dulled, and he felt his body stiffen, his limbs unresponsive, and his eyes glazed over. The crowd gasped in surprise at his words. Up in the stands, Aizawa flinched, recognizing that Midoriya had taken the bait and was now under Shinso's control. Mina stood up in her seat, fists clenched in worry for him. Shinso stepped forward with a smirk, confident that victory was within his grasp. He believed Izuku was just another person destined for failure, like himself. Inside Izuku's mind, there was silence, darkness, and a void where his thoughts seemed to slip away. But then, something stirred within him, a spark, a flame. Albion's voice roared back against the fog, urging him not to be controlled by a mere human. It called him a partner and commanded him to wake up and fight through the fog of control. A resolve ignited within Izuku, transforming from a mere ember into an inferno. He declared that he would not be owned or manipulated. He was a proud and noble dragon, not a puppet for someone else's gain. He remembered his promise to the people who had lost their flames and vowed not to give up. He was Izuku Midoriya, Mina's boyfriend, and the White Dragon Emperor. Back in reality, Shinso stepped closer, believing he was on the verge of victory. But then, Izuku's foot slammed into the ground, breaking the hold of the brainwashing. He looked up, eyes ablaze with determination. The arena shook, and the crowd fell silent in disbelief. Shinso gasped, stumbling back as Izuku stood tall, declaring that he would not be controlled. He was a dragon. With newfound purpose, Izuku dashed forward, moving faster than before. A swift leg sweep knocked Shinso off his feet. Before Shinso could recover, Izuku grabbed the front of his jacket and hurled him over the edge. The announcement of Izuku's victory echoed through the arena, and the crowd erupted in awe. Mina raced to meet him as he returned, sweat dripping down his temple. She grinned and threw her arms around his neck, relieved that he had won. Izuku rested his forehead against hers, acknowledging the moment. When she asked what had happened, he smiled and shared that he remembered what she had told him. She beamed, thinking he meant he was a dragon, but he whispered that he was hers. They shared a kiss as the camera captured the moment, eliciting gasps from those watching. The chapter concluded, leaving a sense of excitement and anticipation for what was to come next.